To whom much is given, much is required. Part of that requirement is sharing. Culture is the heartbeat within our lives, and it's at the core of so many things. While we live in a time when we are starving for wisdom, I welcome you to your wisdom retreat at Culture Raises Us. Yes, so today's guest, Rajah Caruth, is a full-time professional race car driver who's also a junior at the HBCU, Winston-Salem State University, pursuing a major in motorsports management. I want to welcome you to this space, firstly. As we normally look to kind of speak with cultivators across multiple industries and environments, and I think you, my friend, are embarking on setting a very, very impactful, what I call standard of excellence, right? Moving forward. And we'll talk about that shortly. But before we do, and before you tell us a little bit more about yourself, we always start the conversation with this question. When you think or hear culture, what does that mean to you?
First and foremost, thank you for having me on. And when I hear culture, the first thing that comes to mind is family. So my Caribbean heritage on both my mom's and my dad's side, to growing up in D.C. and spending my elementary, middle, and high school years there, to moving to North Carolina when I turned 18 and graduated high school and attended Winston-Salem State University. Or I'm a junior, so I'm still attending there. And living in Concord, North Carolina, and getting adjusted to the culture of racing. When I hear the word culture, I think about family and I think about identity. So from my grandma's food to her life lessons that she's taught me to the life lessons I've learned from working in race shops and going to the racetrack with my team on a weekly basis has changed my moral compass and really strengthened my character. So that's what I think about when I hear culture.
I love that the definition for it is so rooted in family for you. And it's ironic that I was turned on to via your father, who's a great, great dude, professor over at the good old HU. And so hearing you speak about family like that makes total sense. And I think it's a great segue into tell us a little bit more about yourself outside of how much family means to you. Give us a little bit more line of sight into who you are.
Yeah, so obviously, like we discussed, I'm a full-time driver in the Craftsman Truck Series, which is the equivalent of, AAA or AA, the G League or collegiate level basketball. And so really in this division, right, you have veterans that compete here on have been here for years and are okay with that for various reasons. And then you have younger cats like me that are using this division to hopefully be, in the Cup Series one day, and which is the equivalent of the NBA, NFL, MLB, and so on and so forth. So that's where I'm at as a driver, and I started very late compared to all of my counterparts. I started racing virtually on this platform called iRacing when I was 16 years old, and didn't get into a real car till I was 17, whereas literally everybody I'm racing against started when they were 5, 7, wow, 10, or 12 years old. So,
right.
That's who I am, I guess, as an athlete. And then personally, obviously, I'm continuing my education at an HBCU in Winston-Salem State, and that's something that's been internalized into, part of me. My dad went to Clark Atlanta.
Nice.
And I have teachers that have gone to Howard, to FAMU, to Hampton, to Tuskegee, and so I've understand the importance of continuing my education at HBCUs. So aside from that, I love basketball, I love music, I like art and nature. So I'm a pretty low key dude, but on the racetrack, under the helmet, I'm a different person than I am outside the track.
That's awesome. I obviously have an affinity for HBCUs as I too attended one. So to hear the legacy that lives within you and your family is a beautiful thing. And as I mentioned to you earlier, I think you're part of setting a very new path and narrative around motorsports and people of color within it. And this is obviously not a small task by any means, but I think it's our responsibility to set you up for success, right? And pour into you accordingly with the necessary tools and support so that you can fly. And as you enter this race car culture, it would be good to see where your head is beyond, just the racing achievements, right? And what are the other ways you see yourself impacting and being involved in the sport and the culture within it and around it?
I think for me, I know who and what I represent, and that's something I welcome. The Black community, the Caribbean American community, I welcome that, and I cherish it because it's a part of who I am, and
Mhm.
to bring that, light that culture into the sport is a blessing that I get to be one of the, I guess, the chaperones and ushering that in, and so. Uh, I really, I guess, fulfill that by just being myself and treating people how I want to be treated, and not being afraid to listen to the music I listen to, or wear the clothes I wear, or wear the jewelry that I wear, or
That's right.
all the things that I say. And with that being said, I've really been met with open arms by not only the people on my race team, but also the individuals in this industry. And so it's been a blessing so far, and I've thoroughly enjoyed my time in the sport, and hopefully it's the first of many years to come.
Yeah, I foresee that, and you're entering this at such a early, young age, as you mentioned. Maybe not as early as that as some of your counterparts, but how have you managed to kind of find the balance and not get kind of swept up in the commotion and the pressures that come with? I mean, this is a level of fame that you're now embarking
Yeah.
on.
I mean, it's definitely interesting because, I'm a pretty reserved person, and a lot of literally the cameras and stuff like that is an adjustment to me.
Mm.
And so I've had to learn how to just be comfortable with that in public speaking. And, and in school, I felt like I was a quiet kid, and I played sports. I ran track. I played basketball. I play soccer. And so I have that athletic competitiveness and intensity inside. But as far as everything else is concerned, man, I honestly had want nothing to do with it. And so
Yeah.
it's been an adjustment to learn how to be professional and understand that, like, I may get to race, but all this other stuff comes with it. And for me, it just comes back to my passion, and the passion isn't rooted in my work ethic. And so I love this, and like that Drake, DJ Khaled, I don't know, DJ Khaled not a song, but Drake, Eminem, Wayne, and Kanye West, the Forever song, like that is like one of my models. Because like this is all I've ever wanted. So
Mm. So that's like your theme music. That's your theme music.
kind of, I like a lot of different music, but that's probably one of my theme songs for real.
I love that you talk about this transition of getting comfortable with the environment and the industry and the culture, and doing it in a way where you maintain the integrity of who you are. It sounds like
Yeah.
you're not trying to deviate from your core to assimilate to a surrounding. You're trying to be in the surrounding in your own authentic self.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because when I first moved to North Carolina, I just turned 18 in the summer of 2020, and during that time, obviously, the things that were going on in this country was pretty impactful to me, especially being like a young Black man in this country, living 300 plus miles away from my family, just getting my driver's license, 1 bedroom apartment, working in the race shop where I was the only Black person there and the only person under 30 years old. So that was a very testing time. And so in those first 3, 6, 9 months that I lived here, I really just had to focus on just maintaining myself and learning how to exist and,
Right.
and function in this different culture here. But now I think I'm thankful for what my family has taught me, and for having them with me, every step of the way,
Mm-hmm.
because I wouldn't have changed anything for the world. There was a lot of like not so fun experiences and a lot of, very testing battles and situations, but definitely came out of it, and for the better for sure.
Yeah, and you talk about, the culture and the industry that you're in is not one that there's a prominent presence of people of color. I mean, that's evident, right? So I think as you come into this, it's even more critical that you remain true to yourself to add this color, for lack of, but literally and figuratively, to this, right? And so with that, I mean, there's obviously a lot of stereotypes that are associated with this sport. Do you think you've started to help change the culture of racing and kind of evolve it in your mind? and what kind of work do you think is left to be done in regards to that?
Man, I hope so, because a lot of the stereotypes, especially about like the innards of the industry and the individuals in it, are just really not true. A
Oh,
lot of that
speak on
really
that.
lies
Yeah.
there in with the fan base, honestly, more so than the people, the drivers, the pit crew athletes, the mechanics, the people,
Wow.
the road crew that travel to the racetrack, the NASCAR officials, like that. The stereotypes are really not true for the people that work in the world of NASCAR. And I felt like in years past, it's been so much true for more so the fan base than anything. And fortunately, like I said, I've for the most part have had positive encounters with people in the sport, and have really helped me along my way, along my way so far. And that with that being said, there's still a lot of work to do for just creating opportunities for people that have an interest or a passion or desire to be a part of the sport in any capacity, and just making it a feasible option for them. Not even from a driving standpoint, because you've got 40 drivers in each division, give or take, and then for each driver there's 3 to 9 different individuals that work on that vehicle that they
Right.
drive. So it's hundreds upon hundreds of individuals that work just on race teams, let alone parts vendors, officials, the legal aspect of it. And so there's a lot of work to do, I think, to just present the different job opportunities and pathways that there are to have careers that maybe they start in NASCAR and end up somewhere else, or start somewhere and end up in NASCAR, because there's a lot of different opportunities in the sport that's really not shown.
Right.
um, you know because obviously you've got to market your star athletes, just like
That's right. That's right.
yeah, the NFL, you got to market the people that are out there competing, but there's so much that goes into it, and it's a lot of individuals that put their
Are contributing to your excellence, right?
for
To your
sure.
excellence. But you gave a great insight into something that I didn't think about when you broke it up in terms of the stereotypes around race car driving, right? You broke it down into, it's not like that inside the industry of professionals and all the team members, but it's more so that of the fan base, which it sounds like there's opportunity there for change and significant change, as opposed to the whole, right? And you're giving line of sight to inside, it's not as bad as people are perceiving it.
Right. And I mean, even with the fans now, like, it's a lot different than it was even 5-10 years ago, and
Yeah.
in a positive context. I didn't grow up going to races. I went to my first race when I was 12.
Mm.
And obviously, since I've come around more recently, I wasn't around the sport in the early 2000s and before that, so I can't speak for
Right,
how it
right.
was back then. I can really only speak from my experiences. And every time I went to a race, like, outside of a few small instances here and there, I've had positive experiences, and not
Good.
dealt with anything really outside of like microaggressions, here and there. So I think there's, like I said, a lot of work to be done, but NASCAR, the sport, and then also I feel like the teams and then the individuals a part of it have done a great job so far.
That's awesome. In my observation of the racing world, I think there's a great deal of the sponsorships, right? Sponsorships and the branding that's very much part of the culture from a visibility standpoint. And as you're building your brand, because we do know you are a brand, so we got to remember that.
Yeah.
And a vessel of purpose, the Rajah brand. I think it's going to be critical that you choose and align with brands that fit the vision that you're kind of looking to drive long term. What's your process of vetting who you allow, and look at the words very purposely, who you allow to work with you in this respect?
Man, it puts an emphasis on the power of discernment. I feel like from really over the last almost a year, I grew up in a Christian household loosely, and so grew up going to church on Sunday, and that honestly got away from that really up until I moved here. And so as I've grown up more, I've really got back into my faith. And so one thing I've learned about through that is the importance of discernment. And one of my good friends, Abby, really shed light on that to me. And I've learned, like, there's always like ulterior motives and agendas for the
That's right.
part, which
That's right.
a lot of them are sincere and intent and genuine, and a lot of them are not. And so for me, I spoke about family earlier, and I bring it back to that as to I rely on my dad, my mom, my little sister. My little sister does like my social media. My dad's
I love that.
or
Yep.
and my mom helps me with like my legal and my school stuff. So I just try to keep it in the family as much as possible, and I'm still obviously open and willing to listen, and I'm receptive when people want to help me, and I'm extremely appreciative of it. But at the same time, I've learned honestly the hard way sometimes where people will represent that they want to help and then want to, I guess, use my branding or use me as a tool for their own benefit. The power of discernment has been something I've really had to learn and use in my career so far.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's rooted in your relationship with God first and foremost, which is beautiful. And then through the tools that God has given you in your family. And with that foundation, you're going to be in a very, very good place to make some significant change and be a change agent coming from and rooted in all the good things. So I'm so glad to hear that. And you kind of have touched on this a little bit, because I'm also looking to find out, so how do you approach the business side of this, right? What guidance have you received to kind of ensure that you're in an equitable position, not just a position, because it's not, we're not cheering just to be in the room, right?
Yeah.
Those days are over. And I'd love to get your sense of both short-term and long-term, and what mistakes are you kind of looking to avoid, and what new areas are you kind of hoping to capitalize in?
Yeah, really, I got to start with my dad. Like, he went to Clark Atlanta, like I said, but he's been around in the sports industry and in the music industry, the record industry in particular. And so he's given me so much knowledge and really showed me things, so that way I don't have to learn punitively and
That's right.
learn the hard way. And so, to be clear, I've made, plenty of like mistakes on my own, financially and personally, socially so far, but a lot of the stuff I haven't had to make those missteps because he's showed me like, all right, you don't need to be doing this. Maybe represented to go and get like, a Cuban link or go and get a car note because you just can, but it's like it is not equitable long term. And really, I learned that from my dad and from my entire family, but also from people that I've met in this industry and outside of this industry, from people I've met in the football world to the music and movie industry world. People have really kind of shown me the way. And so Alvin Kamara told me to keep the main thing. And so that is something that I've really tried to work by, because it's easy to get distracted by things.
That's right.
Literally shiny things.
Discernment. Here's your discernment moment.
You see that check cash or the deposit cash in your bank account. It's like, all right, I can go and buy this, that, and the other. And it's like, probably shouldn't do that. And I learned a lot about, honestly, like how to treat people, because it's easy to like get some sort of social status that I don't see it as that, but it seemed like that to other people, and use that in a positive light and also a negative light. So one thing I've really tried to work on and continue to do so is, like, no matter how successful I get in this racing world, and outside of that, because although I want this to be my end game, I know it'd be naive to say that racing would be all that I do.
Right.
I just try to ensure that I stay as humble and stay my personality as well, and at the same time, set my own boundaries.
Yeah.
So
yeah. So you talk about racing being all that you do, or not being the thing that all that you do. Gaming, you talked about earlier, played a significant role in this transition, right, into getting into race car driving, and it's being at like the new frontier, you think, that will usher in the next generation of professional drivers. And it's funny, when I worked for Adidas, I was part of a group that was actually tasked with building the narrative around gaming being like the modern day athlete, similar to basketball players or football players or soccer players, because they train for their craft. They got coaches, there's scholarships, there's majors now, at schools and things to that degree. And in our exercise of looking into this, we identified a great deal, doing this research. And one of the things we found was that there was this intrigue that was very intriguing to me, was how much gamers needed exercise to recover from gaming, right? Because they have such a high level of cortisol, which is associated with like adrenaline during gaming. And then we also found how athletes use and need gaming as a form of recovery. Which one are you, and what impact did this have when you, just years back when you were still in high school?
Honestly, man, both. Because even like so I would say 1 year, I had in the winter I did like 2 a day. So I ran indoor track, but also played basketball at my high school, and those were some really testing days. And a lot of the ways I would use to decompress would be just getting and playing NASCAR games on the PlayStation. And so the summer of that following year, when I was a rising junior in high school, that's when I first started racing on iRacing and starting my virtual racing career. And so I would be on there for whenever I was not at my summer job. I would be on my makeshift setup at my house, or my family's house. And after that, on evenings, I would go up to Wilson High School, or Woodrow Wilson High School in DC, and have track practice in the summer. So I think it worked both ways. And for me now, like it really works hand in hand, because I start my days with workouts at 7 in the morning, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then usually in the evenings, whenever I get home, 6, 7, 8 o'clock, once I finish like making dinner or doing the things I've got to do, I'll either get on my iRacing rig to practice, or just make laps for the next race, or hop on the PlayStation and just play like, I don't know, Red Dead or Minecraft or something, just to free roam, just to decompress and escape a little bit.
Good for you. So how will gaming change, do you think, the accessibility to the sport and the culture, future of this sport?
I think it's going to continue to change it in such a positive light, and also just provide more opportunities, because the only reason that I am able to race right now and I'm in this spot is because of the legitimacy of the iRacing platform. And if that wasn't the case, I'd still be a fan. I'd probably be going to either Winston or A&T or Morehouse, to be completely real, just to wanting to be around the sport in some capacity. But I think at the same time, with how more useful and accurate iRacing becomes, I think it'll be still an avenue for drivers to start their careers and then jump to real life racing. William Byron, that's a driver in the Cup Series, he started racing on there a couple years before me, and now he's a multi-time winner and perennial contender in the Cup Series. And
wow,
a lot of my fellow racers that I raced against, I spent time with racing with them on iRacing, and they were, like myself, are really advanced on that platform and have translated those skills to real life. So I'm not entirely sure how it would translate to other sports, because I can't say that playing 2K is gonna
right
and hoop, but I feel like for racing in particular, it's a really good tool, and it's got a chance to be pretty special in there.
So you see it playing a huge role, huge role. So with that, I then look at, if gaming plays a huge role, I'd love to see what's the narrative or the imprint that you want to bring to the sport of race car driving, and how do you want your legacy to be remembered?
Honestly, man, what I've been trying to bring is, like, obviously my driving's number one, and I work on my craft every day, but I try to bring like a little of my swagger too, from how I dress to the music I listen to, and just my personality. That's really what I try to do, even on, I'm not obviously in the Cup Series, but hopefully I'm there one day and I can continue on.
No, you will.
Trajectory.
We're going to manifest that.
Yes, sir.
Manifest that.
And I think my legacy, it's hard to say, because I'm extremely goal-oriented and results-desiring. And so, part of me is like, I want to have extremely high and numerous accolades in the sport from an accomplishment and achievement standpoint, but also, like, I learned the importance of people. So I feel like I would love to have had a positive impact on everybody that I've had the chance to work with. I see that as hand in hand because competitively, I mean, I want to be the best, but also like, you know, it's a people sport. It's not just cars going, in circles.
Yeah.
So it's twofold for that for me.
So you talk about the importance of people. Are there people that inspire you or have inspired you outside of your industry?
No question, no question. I have to say my number one is Chadwick Boseman. From from playing Jackie Robinson and Chris Brown. Jackie Robinson and
James Brown.
And James Brown to just 21 Bridges and the things he did for Howard and also just how he was as a person. That's one of my really big role models, and
Love that.
it's really obviously unfortunate that he passed away. But that's one of my biggest heroes outside of the sports world. Just how to be a professional and just be a human being.
Yeah.
That's my number one. And then also, I hope this isn't weird, but so I love superhero movies, and movies are something I just enjoy to watch, and I'd really drive a lot of inspiration from characters in the movies. So that could be from Marvel movies, DC movies,
Yep.
the Cars franchise, and really you name it. I draw inspiration from I guess fictional characters. I seen this TikTok about it, and it was like that's literally what I do.
You sound like my daughters. You sound like my daughters with this movie stuff, the whole Marvel universe and all that.
Yeah,
But
that stuff.
when you talk about Chadwick and you talk about how short of a time he spent here, and you look at how big of an impact he had with his time, and so I look at you and think another piece of motivation, hopefully, is looking at if you're given more time. Just imagine what you're able to do based off of the inspiration that was put in you through Chadwick Boseman, right?
No questions. As I look at it the same way.
Good. And so, because many of us, are on our journey of kind of figuring out our why. And you're probably going to start hearing that a ton if you haven't already. And what our purpose is that God has kind of put within us. And do you have a sense yet on what your purpose is? And do you make an intentional choice to ensure that you don't deviate from your why?
That's a great question, man. And honestly, I had a talk with my mom about this like probably half a year ago, and it was kind of a rough point in the season last year. So in the division I was in last year, started off the season really nicely, was leading the points, run up front, leading laps for like over half the year. And then the back part of the year, everything kind of fell apart from mistakes that I made to personnel changes and just flat out having bad luck and hand-me-down equipment. It just didn't work out. And so I put a lot of that on my shoulders, and in reality, it was probably not the best to do that because a lot of it was out of my control.
That's right.
And so my mom's really told me that I do not lose worth or purpose based on my career, and it does not affect me. And that's something that I've had to learn because, racing is my everything, and I care about it so much. But at the same time, if racing goes away, I still have purpose.
That's right.
And I would just have to find what that is. And so the way I've seen it now, and it kind of changes on a semi-frequent basis, but it's like, right. I feel like my purpose right now is to be the best race car driver I can be, and be there for my little sister as she transitions into college, and be there for my grandma and my mom and my sister and my dad. But at the same time, I know that racing won't be forever, so it's a day-to-day change. But at the core of it, I'm just extremely motivated to just dive and give everything into my craft and do whatever it takes. But at the same time, people matter to me. So from, like I said, my family to like the people on my race team, like this week, they've been here to like midnight almost every day, like working on the vehicles to race this weekend. To me, that means a lot because I'm the one that gets to drive the vehicle, and the work that they do and the sacrifices that they make for their families just so I can go out there and chase my dreams is it's really amazing.
Yeah, and your craft is the gift that God gave you. And thank God that you were able to tap into it and you had the support of a family who are galvanizing around ensuring that you are able to do it at the highest level, at the best level. And you could look at the correlation and how it's consistent with even the team that is currently there with you working
Yeah.
on your vehicles to prepare you, right? So please understand that the master orchestrator of all this is God that's doing all of these things. So another thing I'd love to share with you, and I think you said an instance where you've gone through this, is you put all of it on your own shoulders, right? You thought it was just you. None of this is all you. You're not in this on your own.
Yeah.
You have a village that is going to help propel you, support you, and pour into you accordingly. And you could look to us as being new members of that team to definitely do that for sure. But I love that. Yeah, absolutely. I love that you've recognized it within your family. You recognize it within your crew, and your extended family is going to continue to help propel you through for that for sure. So alleviate that burden of thinking that you're on your own and you got to do everything yourself. We're here to help you and
Yeah, man.
to make that
Like,
possible.
one thing I've learned too, like, so I've lived by myself for almost the last 3 years during probably the most important years of your youth, from the time you turn 18 up until, like, being graduated from college.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times I did feel by myself because my dad would come with me to the racetrack and spend time down here with me. Same with my sister, same with my mom. But a lot of times it was just me on the day to day. And so I learned that although I'm by myself, sometimes that doesn't mean I'm alone. And that took me a bit to figure out, because it was like, the phrase like one call away is like really true. I'm fortunate in my case, because I know other people's families' dynamics are different. And like I'm really lucky to have my dad in my life, because he didn't have his dad in his life.
Right.
And so
Right.
a lot of my friends didn't have that either. And I'm extremely blessed to have that be the case. So I've really learned, like you said, it's a village and you're never in this alone. You've got to take accountability for yourself.
Oh, absolutely. 1,000%. And what you need to, in your part. Absolutely.
But at the same time, it's like, it's not just you. And you got to, especially it's easy in the racing world to like get emotional, like do reckless things and like destroy your equipment and stuff. And it's like, but no, like my guys have spent hours on this stuff.
Aaron, this is right.
And with their families and doing other things that they care about. And, it's not just you is the thing I've learned.
I love it. Well, we always end these sessions, we make the correlation to the work that's done in cultures and shaping cultures, to like farming and planting seeds and watering them and how they blossom. And so I'd love for you to share, if there were 3 seeds that you would want to leave with the stewards of culture moving forward, what would those 3 seeds be? These 3 important things.
Ooh, that's really good. That's a really good question. I feel like I really operate on a day-to-day basis by like 2 or 3, like, I guess, core concepts. I could share those.
Please.
I would say first, it applies to like my profession, my career, and just being fully committed to it and all in, 10 toes down, 10 figures fully in, from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed. Like I'm up 6:30 every morning. I'm not in bed till 11 o'clock, midnight. And I would love to go to bed early, but I know I can't because I've got more things I got to do. And getting up in the morning is hard, but I'm still getting up. And that's because I want this with every hair on my skin and every cell in my body. So I'd say first one would be just commitment. I don't know the right word for it, but I guess you could say commitment.
Commitment.
Dedication or something like that.
Yep.
Second, I think, is just people. Just the word people, from how you treat them to understanding their importance and being thoughtful, and obviously setting boundaries and not being taken advantage of. But
That's right.
There's moments to be selfless and there's moments to put yourself first. So I would say people is my second one. And then my third one, I feel like it's just would be thoughtfulness as a whole. So that applies to your career, it applies to your family, it applies to your mental state, and obviously holding yourself accountable, but making sure like you're good in your head and giving yourself grace when you deserve it, and not being extremely hard on yourself, which I am a, a, a bad person about being unfair to myself and holding myself to high expectations. So I'll say thoughtfulness is my third one, because thinking things through, and I think works for every walk of life. So those would be my three.
Listen, you are wise beyond your years, and you have a great, bright future in front of you, but you also have an impactful presence right now. And you, my friend, are going to be the greatest race car driver that you decide to be. You will be the greatest race car driver that you decide to be. And I really look forward to seeing how God is going to continue to use you, because you have a spirit that's needed to touch many, many people. And that is the goal of all this. You are here to inspire others to tap into their gifts like you're tapping into yours. And I want to tell you, we are going to be here to support you. We are going to be here to see you fail and make mistakes. We're going to be here to see you excel and flourish throughout this whole journey. But I sincerely want to say thank you for your time. But more importantly, I want to thank you for being comfortable with being you.
I appreciate that, man. That's something I've had to learn too. Like, this is my body, my skin, my soul. So
we're all a work in progress, and it's going to be a constant learning. You're going to be learning for the rest of your life, but you have a sense of discernment that's going to help your learning accelerate you to be the greatest race car driver you decide to be. And for that, I thank you.
Thank you for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
It's a pleasure, man.